going on? It is the
Yeah.
Practical Prayer podcast on the New Thought Media Network, and we took a week off for much changing. I was at the Parliament of World Religions. Carol had a birthday and a new personal style, and just the world is in motion.
The world is in motion. Actually, my birthday was in June, and it
So
took me.
this
It
is
took
your
me.
birthday present left over from June to
Well,
finally unwrap it.
yeah, it took me that long to figure out whether I was whether I was going to do it or not.
Okay. You got your new natural look, which I'm liking.
Thank you.
And last week was the first, actually, this week is the first rerun of an episode of the Practical Prayer podcast. We've been recording a week ahead, but because of the Parliament last week, we did not have another one in the can. So this week is going to be a repeat on Wednesday. On the audio podcast drops a rerun of episode 6, which I loved.
You know what? I just can't comprehend when you say rerun because we're on so much and it's always something new. I just can't even imagine a rerun.
Yeah. Well,
You know?
that's a topic that we don't need to cover again because the title is An Unlikely Duo, and it's the story of how the two of us got onto this podcast together. Which, if we were to tell it now, would be a very similar story, but, it's a story.
It is. It's a
Yeah.
good story.
So it was fun at the Parliament of World Religions.
Well, what can you tell me before we go on? Because I really wanted to, hear about it.
Well, for the first time at the Parliament of World Religions, all of the New Thought groups attended together. So I think 15, 16 years ago, New Thought was finally recognized as a world religion, and we were recognized and able to participate. And since then, the various different groups, which are the Affiliated New Thought Network and the International New Thought Alliance and the Unity Church and the Centers for Spiritual Living and Divine Science Federation, Universal Foundation for Better Living and Agape, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, the Association for Global New Thought, all went and all had their little exhibits and displays and conversations. And this time, we all went together. So all of the groups bought a 10 by 10 foot booth, but we were supposed to take down all the pipe and drape between them. We took down the backs so you could see through the whole area and everybody kind of have a visual of everybody else. They still left the lanes between them because apparently no separation is still a little scary for some of the folks who are involved. But it was great to be there. The Affiliated New Thought Network booth was right next to the Agape booth. Got to hang around with Michael Beckwith for a little while, and Sheila McKeithen from the Universal Foundation for Better Living was there, and all sorts of other notables. Marianne Williamson did a brief presentation, and Robert Brzezinski, president of the New Thought Media Network, was there as well. He was filming a documentary about New Thought at the Parliament. He got to do a 20-minute interview with Marianne Williamson, which was fun. So there's a lot of richness and a lot of texture just being there with New Thought. And also fun to connect with the other religions and see what they've got going on.
I like that. See what they've got going on.
Well, and it's interesting because a lot of times you run into people who have their religion or their spiritual practice, and it's pretty baked in. So it's like you do it my way, and that's just the way that you do it. And if somebody does it not my way, then the best I can do is ignore them. And the worst I can do is know that they're going to go to hell. But the people who go to the Parliament of the World Religions are really open to other religions. And my favorite thing to do, the closest hotel to the exhibit hall was a half a mile away. It's all an indoor walk through the McCormick Place. It's huge. So my favorite thing to do is in the elevator at the hotel on my way over to the session for the morning, to run into somebody who's also going over there and just strike up a conversation. So the first time that happened, it was a Unity minister from Santa Fe, New Mexico, and I just got a chance to chat with her the whole way, like what's going on, because we're both inside the New Thought bubble. And then another time it happened, it was a Baha'i, and got to talk to her about Baha'i and where she is and what's going on for her and how she's engaging in the world the way that it is, even with the way that the traditional Baha'i faith says that things ought to go. So wonderful exposure and get some richness from that. The Sikhs did a langar kitchen, and they served lunch for free for everybody at the Parliament every day.
Wow.
Yeah,
Every day.
every day, and there were like 3,000 people at the Parliament. They were prepared to feed everybody, and so gracious and so well organized and so rolling with the punches. They were set up in a tent outside, not because they liked being in a tent, but because it turns out it would have cost them an extra $50,000 to get space in the building. So their generosity was not matched by the people who rent out space at McCormick Place. But on Monday it was pouring rain and all their carpets inside the tent got soaked. So on Tuesday they had plastic over the carpet, and on Wednesday they had carpet over the plastic over the carpet. So they're just rolling with it and dealing with it, and serving up this wonderful Indian food.
Wow.
And on Friday, I went to the Langar lunch, and it's just basically the order that you walk in, you sit down next to somebody and start chatting them up. And so I was sitting down next to a Roman Catholic priest. Now, the Roman Catholics have quite a reputation for thinking that they're the one true faith and everybody else has got it wrong. But this is the guy from the Catholic Church who's going to the Parliament of the World Religions, and he was really cool and really open and talking, and he had an epiphany that morning that the way to connect the world's religions is through our mystics, because the mystics in every tradition are saying the same thing, but they're saying it in the language of their tradition.
Yeah, I really get that.
Yeah,
I really, really do. And you just can't say that to anybody.
Right.
Because they don't hear it. And of course, I used to say it a lot. Not to be facetious or mean or anything like that. It's just that, I read a lot, and after a while you start to hear things repeat in a different phrase and so forth, and it's another thing. But I concluded the same thing. That, listen, we're all saying the same thing now. Can we just say it and bless each other in the way that we say it? Maybe there's some nuances, of course.
Yeah, and do it as though we're not disagreeing.
Yeah, and there are nuances within our own, little bubbles, so nuances of difference shouldn't freak anybody out, but it does. It does. But yeah, I get that.
Yep. And so they gave New Thought a prayer room. So we had a little room where people could get together, and we actually did the Philly Spiritual Adventures afternoon meditations from the prayer room at the Parliament of the World Religions. And Carolyn's, who's my practitioner, who lives in Milwaukee, so she's never local. I got a chance to spend a good part of the week with her, and we're doing the meditations together from there. So a lot of richness, a lot of really cool stuff going on.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
And I'm still thinking about it and post-processing it.
I'm sure that's going to take a couple of weeks.
Until I forget everything that I learned.
Well, you got videos and all that business, right?
Robert has the videos. I'll have to have him play them back for me.
Yeah, well, it'll be so many ahas, I'm sure. I'm just imagining if it were me, it would just be one aha after another. Oh, I forgot this really. You ever been in a situation where you hear something and it just floors you? Mm-hmm. And then you're going on with life, and maybe 2 years later you're hearing it again, and you're like, oh, this was life-changing. And I didn't forget, but I sort of did. So it's all there for you.
Yeah. So we're going to do the Practical Prayer Podcast. And by the way, for everybody who is listening and watching on New Thought Media Network or watching the rebroadcast, we are welcoming your comments and your questions and your requests for practical prayer, which you can do either through the comments on your current social media video feed, or you can go to bethelight.com, be-the-light.com. That's this one here. And there's a button on the Practical Prayer Podcast page where you can submit a comment or make a request or some such. And if you go ahead and do that, then we will respond accordingly. And so as we record the podcast today, you originally thought karma
would
be good.
I did. Yes.
So let's talk karma. I think I've got the Parliament of World Religions out of my system for the next 30 minutes.
We'll see. Something might spark.
That always happens. But anyway, let's start the podcast and see what happens.
A practical prayer is a prayer that works.
These discussions between Reverend Bill Marchiony and Carol Lawrence dive into the details of how it works and how to work it.
Reverend Bill is a New Thought minister and the author of Practical Prayer for Real Results.
Your new life begins with a new thought.
Carol Lawrence is on a spiritual quest, finding the New Thought teaching after decades on the pulpit in 3 different traditional denominations.
I've got some questions.
Together, they're exploring the philosophy and activities that come together from many of the world's religions to create the practical spirituality that is New Thought.
Welcome to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol, here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marchiony.
And we have another podcast episode, number 117 in the series, and you today are wanting to talk about karma.
Yes, because, whenever I've been reading something and then the one thing I love about spirituality and New Thought and everything, you never get to know it. As soon as you...
I think this teaching is pretty simple. I mean, there's nuance, but you can know it. Mario, go ahead.
No, you can't know it, because this is life. You're ever learning. Whatever you learn, it locates itself where you are right now and becomes relevant. And it seems not necessarily different, but expanding. That's a good word. It expands. So when I'm reading about something, it just keeps on getting bigger, right? So karma, usually people think of it as you're getting back what you put out, right? What goes around comes around, and payback, and you reap what you sow, all of that. And I get that, and it can be pretty simple. But then I was reading about past lives karma, and so forth. And I said, whoa, wait a minute now. I'm trying to deal with the karma right here. I'm not saying that it's not true. I'm not saying that. I'm saying respectfully, if it is, I can't handle anymore right now. Thank you very much. So.
And I think you're probably on the right track.
What say you about?
And this is my opinion, that the thing that we would want to pay attention to is current life karma. The law of attraction, what goes around comes around. Not necessarily you get back what you put out, because it goes around for a long time sometimes before it comes around. But past life karma is in some ways really helpful for explaining or blaming the situation that we were born into. Mm-hmm. Like somebody who is less financially advantaged than they would want to be, or has a disability, or a particular ethnic or racial or geographic origin story in this life, then, why was I born this way? And karma, something happened in a previous life that caused me to be born into this so that I can go through this experience. And on the one hand, that might be completely true. On the other hand, I think that's completely above our pay grade. Mm-hmm. We are here to live this life as we are living it, and the reason that there are some people who have disabilities and other people who don't have disabilities, some people with a lot of money and means and other people without money and means, is just because all of those things are possible, so somebody gets to do them. And it's only we saying, oh, well, I got born into this life and that's bad, or this part of it is bad, and I got born into this one and that part is good. So that's all judgment as far as we're concerned. So blaming an external force or a past life or something else on how we came into this particular life is, I think, in a lot of ways irrelevant. It doesn't matter why that happened. We are here now and self-actualized and able to make choices here and to have an experience in this life So game on.
Yeah, I took the thought, all the way through as far as I could go. No surprise there, right? And I thought about it, and here's where it came out. Okay, for me, it may be true, as you said, but if I hang on to that and I live in that understanding only, it takes away a responsibility for me to do things with this life that I have right now, because I can say, okay, well, this is the lot that I have been given, or the cards that I've been dealt. That's what some people say, and I just have to do that. I kind of feel like that's such a limitation. So I said, okay, if that's true, that's fine. I can't do anything about that right now. I got to deal with this. So let's jump over into the life that we're in right now. And as my children, even before I had children, I used to carry around a bunch of ones because I'm from Philadelphia, and I would carry a pocket full of ones because there were always people that were panhandling in Center City. And I love going to the gallery, but I would always just give out the ones as I went. Because, and it's terrible. I mean, it was benevolent in one sense, but in another sense, I thought, I don't know what's going to happen later on. I might have some kids. And if I put some good stuff out here, they may need some good karma. I didn't think about me. I should have thought about me too. Shay,
Wait,
thank
so-
you. Shay, thank you for the compliment, by the way.
So you're
yeah,
giving
so-
money out to panhandlers to earn karma points for your progeny?
Because I felt that it's real. What you put out is real. You should always, people would tip. I was tipping 15% when people were tipping 8. I always tip 20. So now I'm like, 20, 25, whatever I tip, because it's not just what may come back, but you don't know what's happening in that person's life. And blah, blah, blah. But then again, if I just think you should put good energy out however you can, and if it comes from doing a pocket full of ones. I just got so used to it. When I moved to Jersey, I would have them for when I crossed the bridge. It was just, I honestly, it became a way of life for me. And so now I don't come to Philly that much and don't do that clearly. But I just felt like you should always put it out. I didn't think about the karma comes back, and it comes back in a lot of ways, right? So if it comes back to bless my children, I'm blessed. Because I don't know where those little knuckleheads were going to go. That's the way, I don't know what kind of life they're going to have. But if someone comes along to help them in their life in a way that I can't help them because I put good energy out there, that's what I thought about it. And now that they're all grown now, they got as much energy as I could put out. They go on their own, got to do their own karma thing. But
and you still want the best for them.
yes. But I also think that when you think of it, and I don't think this is selfish, but you do have to think about your own life, right? And the one thing, I figured this out. I didn't get to read this anywhere. I figured it out. Like, karma doesn't go tit for tat.
Correct.
Yeah, because you picked up a penny and, doesn't mean you're going to lose a penny. It takes a while sometime. It may even come back, I think, in an unrecognizable way, in a package that you're trying to figure out, where the heck did this come from? And that's good, and that could be negative and positive too, right? Like karma, I don't think karma is always bad.
Again, back to good or bad, negative or positive, who can tell?
Who could tell? So sometimes really good things happen, and I'm thinking, where'd that come from? Like, I don't remember, and likewise, both sides. And it comes maybe, what did I hear one time, a long time ago? You reap what you sow, later than you sow, greater than you sow. So I remember when I heard that, right, it was in the negative church tradition, right? You're going to get the bad stuff, right? So me, I'm sitting there thinking, well, now, if you reap what you sow, later than you sow, greater. If you put some good stuff out there, greater stuff will come back. It works.
That's the law of attraction. That's the law of attraction, and it's not instantaneous and automatic. So we've all seen the experts who throw a boomerang.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you throw a boomerang and it's like it's gone for a while, and then it comes back.
Mm-hmm.
So you can imagine somebody who's just sitting there minding their own business and they get whacked in the back of the head by a boomerang. It's like, what's the matter with the boomerang? Well, maybe there's nothing wrong with the boomerang. It doesn't matter. The problem's with the catch. You should have caught it with your hand instead of with your head. You know, and there was all the good intention when it was thrown, but it might have been flying for so long that we forgot.
Yeah, exactly. That was going to be my next point. Like, you could forget, right?
That's right.
So in meditation, I make up stuff, right? Because I thought, well, let me be reminded of anything that might be out there that I forgot. Especially if I'm going through a time that's not too cool.
Mm-hmm.
I think, is there anything out there that might explain this? It may not take it away, but it will help to understand it a little bit, maybe. But I have fun with spirituality, life, and the law of attraction and all of that business because it is what it is. So I try to look at the most positive perspective that I can, and listen, since I come from a tradition that has taught me the negative side really well, let me see. Let me see what the positive side might have to say about this.
I like that. Let's take a break and then continue our discussion about boomerangs and how to throw them and what to look for as they return.
Learn to put practical prayer to work in your life. The steps are simple to learn and let you begin to get real results to create the life of your dreams immediately. Reverend Bill Marchiony's widely acclaimed book, Practical Prayer for Real Results, gives you a clear summary of the New Thought principles behind practical prayer and the series of easy-to-understand steps found in the most effective prayers from religions and spiritual practices all over the world and throughout history. Practical prayer is not a replacement for your religion or practice. It's a technique to make the work you do in consciousness even more effective. The book includes 40 prayers on various topics that you can adapt as needed and use as your own. Practical Prayer for Real Results is available in paperback, Kindle, and audiobook on Amazon or at b-the-light.com. That's b-the-light.com.
Welcome back to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marchiony talking about karma.
Talking about karma and the boomerang effect and the boomerang coming back. And sometimes we think about the boomerang and what's coming back and what we're attracting, and that all seems really important. And it's much more important to remember who's throwing it. Who's throwing the boomerang and what the intention is during the casting. It has so much to do with who we are and the way we're engaging with the world. So if somebody comes in with their calculating, divisive and greedy approach to how do I throw this so that I get the most back, I'm going to turn this teaching into a get-rich-quick scheme, it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason that it doesn't work is not because the process doesn't work, it's because the consciousness that we're bringing to the process is not helpful and uplifting.
Yes.
So the pieces in the spiritual practice that go hand in hand with the law of attraction and the infinite rich abundance that's available is, first of all, allowing, which is where we open ourselves to a new possibility. And tied in with that is usually some sort of release, surrender, or forgiveness. Because when we're being controlled by the judgments we have about something that happened in the past, we are bound to those energies. So when I have had an experience of having my heart broken, and I thought it was love, I thought it was going to last forever, and then it fell apart, and I blame her, or I blame them, or I blame whatever it happens to be, and then I set about hardening myself so that I don't get hurt again. what that does is it sets me up in a defensive posture, so that the way that I'll know that I'm doing okay is because another hurtful relationship will come along and I won't get hurt. And that's not what we want to do. What we want to do is say, I am a loving person, and in being a loving person, I have been hurt. So what I want to do is let go of the hurt, not forget it, and certainly not go and have the same relationship with the same sort of person again, but use that as guidance so that as I open myself to another wonderful, loving relationship, as I bring myself into my experience of life, and I am that loving person who I am, then the law of attraction can work, and have the love that I'm sharing and shining and showing, that boomerang that I'm throwing, have that come back around.
So you're talking about your intention,
Absolutely.
right? Yeah.
And it's about being informed but not controlled by past experiences and activities and events.
And you said something really significant, and I don't know if I can quote it exactly right. You said that we're bound by those feelings when the thing happened,
Yeah.
the experience happened. We're bound by those feelings. And so are you saying that if we're in a situation that is hurtful, then we want to deal with the feelings before we move forward, because that's going to determine the energy that we put out? Hence the energy that comes back?
Yeah, if we're in a relationship, or we've been in a relationship that has been an unhappy conclusion, then what we want to do is get ourselves into a place where we can be the love that we want to experience and bring that out into the world, and then we're going to be activating the law of attraction as love, attracting love. Now, huge asterisk here. For somebody who's in an abusive relationship, the first most important thing is to get out of the abusive relationship.
Exactly.
Don't stay in the house saying, it's all good, he'll be fine. No, he won't. If it's time to go, then it's time to go, and then do the healing work on your own, with or without a restraining order.
Exactly. Yeah, the little step between the incident that happened, the negative, the hurt, whatever it is, heartbreak, and starting over to create a new self, I suppose, so that you can attract a different thing. There's that little space I call work.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay. I mean, a lot of times I feel like I'm reaching out to people to say it's all right, come back off the roof. That was a messed up thing that happened, but that doesn't tell the story the rest of your life about what's going to happen.
Right.
But that step between stepping back off the roof and trying to step back into life again, whoa.
Oh,
Really?
yeah. Yeah. You reminded me of when Superstorm Sandy came through the area and did a huge amount of damage in the Atlantic City area, which is where you are, and all the way up into New York and even farther north. That was a huge catastrophe that happened, and we went down and helped with some of the remediation in Atlantic City. And you go into somebody's house, and the house, basically, the seawater had come in at like the 3 feet up the house and then gone out. So you go in, and it's kind of wet, and it's kind of, icky. And the thing that you have to do is you have to tear off all the walls. If the water came in 3 feet up, then you have to tear everything off the walls, down to the studs, 4 feet high. Because until you do that, until you clear out the damage that's been done and get rid of the residue of the catastrophe that's happened, there's no room for healing. If you put fans in there and you dry the whole thing out, then it'll seem like it's going to be fine, but there's going to be no structure to the wallboard, and behind all the walls is going to be black mold. So that's not a favor to anybody. So in the same way, when something comes along that's unpleasant, we don't want to wallpaper over it. We don't want to pretend that it's okay. We don't want to do a spiritual bypass where we say, oh, all is fine, all is love, all is holy. No, it sucks. It sucks and it hurts, and we get to deal with the sucking and the hurting and address those wounds and then let them heal. And sometimes that involves, pulling some debris out. And, as unpleasant as that might be, that's the process in healing and bringing about that new experience. Oh, and by the way, I got hit by a hurricane. What does that say about me? Perhaps
You
it
know,
means that I was just unfortunate. Maybe it means that I was well off enough to afford a beach house. Maybe it means that I don't want to have a beach house. I don't know.
there- there's so many questions that arise, especially so then there's karma, right? You'll think, did I do something to cause all this to happen? And then that's another, to me, that's a rabbit trail. I mean, it's not to say that karma isn't real, and maybe there is a connection, who knows? But for me, I think that there's a starting place. This is what's happening. The Sandy came and we got to start again. It was a mess, and we can talk about it along the way, or we can sit here and talk about it as long as you like. But to start over means we have to start over
Right.
and trust again and hope again. That's a whole lot. It's a whole lot, but it's no other way unless you stay in the rubbish, the storm stuff, the stuff
Yeah.
that's left over, and life isn't good there. It isn't. It isn't.
No, there's definitely challenges there, and there's always choices too. Once that the damage has happened, then the choice is: do I rebuild and remodel? Do I tear down and start over again, or do I take the insurance money and go someplace else? And it's not like there's a right answer and a wrong answer. There is whatever is going to be resonating with us. And for somebody who's like been a little concerned for a while that they're living in a floodplain, and now suddenly there's insurance money to get them out of there, it's like, I'm going.
Right.
I've had second thoughts about this, and so this is my opportunity to change something. And other people who, for whatever their passion is, they're going to be sticking with that. That's okay too. So it's not the answer, it is the appropriateness. It's what's resonating, what's right for us, what's uplifting, and what's going to be life affirming and moving us forward. Because how many people do you know who you or somebody you cared about had a relationship with, and the relationship was just awful, and it fell apart, and then the person, not necessarily your friend or you, the other person in the relationship, went on and had a wonderful relationship with somebody else? Okay, well, there's nothing wrong with any of the people. There's something wrong with the fit.
Yes, and that's hard for us to accept because we're down on ourselves. It must be me. I did something wrong. Blah blah blah. No, to say it's okay. This is just life. You got into a relationship that wasn't too cool. You didn't see it in the beginning, but starting over, and we get to start over as many times as we need to start over. They used to say back in the other life, God gives a second chance. Thank God for a second chance. And I'm thinking, God, I don't need a second chance. I used up my second chance.
9 lives.
God, yeah, listen, I just need another chance, right? Another is ever ending. Just give me another, because I'm probably going to screw this one up too. I'm doing my best, but that's life. And it's okay to have gotten knocked over. It's not your fault. Like Sandy, I remember where we were living at the time, and it was just, I'll never forget how devastating it felt to walk out of the house that first morning. But I just looked around, and all I could think of, well, how do we fix this and start over again? And it was so many people that were into the, and I understand this, the sadness of it.
Yeah.
But I just couldn't believe that this is the end. This is not the end of life. This town that I'm living in is going to have to live again. So what is that going to be like?
Yeah. And open up to new possibilities and not have assumptions that the old assumptions are going to come back. Maybe
Right.
it's going to have to be different. Maybe it's always different. Maybe
Yeah.
lightning doesn't hit the same place twice because the same place isn't there because it got hit by lightning.
Good point.
I mean, we're not sure. We're not sure what it all means.
I wanted to respond to, I think Shay said second, third, and fourth, or chances on it. Like, God is eternal, right? I can't. there's numbers out there that I can't imagine. Now,
Yeah.
you know, I tell my children, they think I walk on water, right? That's nice. But I tell them, listen, mommy had a life. I did have a life. It was another life, right? So I just appreciate the number of chances that you get to start again.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it's good because if we can let go of you don't get any do-overs, right? So if you did something not so cool, you never get to go to that moment and undo it, you know.
Well, you can't
So
undo it. You can do it over. You can start again. That's something wonderful that you can do in a relationship. When you've done this before, where you've gotten into a conversation with someone or an engagement with somebody, and it's just gone sideways, and you said something that you shouldn't have said, and then they got all offended by it, and it's just like it spiraled in. It is possible in circumstances like that to say, you know what, I didn't do that right. I didn't do that right because it wound up not leading where I wanted to. Can we have that conversation again? Can I start over again? And people,
yeah, you
unless
gotta
they
both agree
really
to
don't like you, they'll say, "Yeah, go ahead. We'll try one more time. This is Carol and me, take two."
yeah, yeah, maybe, yeah,
Remarkably well, you know, the golfers call it a mulligan. It's like, well, that shot didn't work. Let me just do that shot over again, and see what happens. See what's different. And one thing I do want to mention is that the teaching, the New Thought teaching says that there is one mind, one power, one presence, one life, one love. There is only one, there is only God. And that everything is an individualization or a particularization of the one. So behind the veil, behind the curtain, and I learned about 70,000 veils separating us from the infinite at the Parliament of World Religions last week. There's the idea that we're all individual, that we're all separate, and we're not. And in that sense, whatever karma is going on, it is the one doing something to itself, in itself, of itself, and for itself. So what's going on is it's packing up all of that experience, and then as it individualizes as another life, pieces of it are coming out. So we're not bound by it or limited by it. Those are learning points. Those are opportunities for some more growth to come about and to happen.
I'm glad I'm going to get to rerun this because, because I stayed with you for a minute, but it got a little deep, and I thought, I hope so. So I'm going to watch this again, probably on YouTube.
Okay. And the ever upward spiral is wonderful. And we're actually going to take another break, and then when we continue, we're going to do a prayer on that ever upward spiral, to quote Mary Manning Morrissey and Barbara Marx Hubbard, who both used it in different ways.
Yeah, yes.
Are you ready to get results? Now, that's not a rhetorical question. Are you ready to get results? RUR2GR. That's actually the abbreviation for the steps in a practical prayer: recognition, unification, realization, gratitude, and release, with a couple of extra steps in there in case some doubt creeps in along the way. RUR2GR. This class is about the prayer technique that's common to all of the spiritual practices and religions in the most effective prayers that they have. And by effective, I mean that the prayer works. It actually creates a change in the experience of the person doing the prayer. It gets a result. We're going to begin with theory, and then we're going to take it into practice. By the end of the class, you will have your very own practical prayer that will help create transformation in your life.
Well, excuse me. Welcome back to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol, here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marchiony. I think I must need some water. I'm just like chewing up words here. But anyway, welcome back.
It's an infinitely abundant universe. There is water for you at the perfect time in the perfect place.
Yes.
We've been talking about karma, the law of attraction. What goes around comes around. You reap what you sow, etc., etc., etc. And we're going to do a prayer now. And the prayer is going to kind of be about that, but it's also going to be about the ever upward spiral. So there are times in our lives where we feel like we're going around in circles. And, I've been through this before. I had a relationship and it has ups and downs, and now I'm back to the part where it's going to be over and I got to move into another, do something different. or with a job, or with our finances, and it seems like it's just repeating. And what's going on is we're in a spiral. And it can be a downward spiral where we're diving in and we're heading for a crash. Or it can be an upward spiral, because every time we come back into that same neighborhood, we can use what we have learned previously. We can take the guidance about the events and the activities in the past and use those to inform the decisions and the choices and the steps that we're going to take now. Because the next time around, it can be better. Mm-hmm. The next time around, it can be better. Oh, well, if it can be better, then what will we have to do to make it better? Well, the first thing is to let go of the idea that it has to be as bad as it was before, or that it's going to get worse. So that's the surrender. We get to surrender what has happened before, our tendency to believe that that's going to repeat itself, and invite change, and invite transformation, open to a new possibility. So that's the prayer today. As we turn away from the world around us, from the visualization of the spiral, and let ourselves be aware of the tone and texture and flavor of what's been going on, what has brought us to this point right here and right now, and what we would choose to have happen next. We pivot from what has been to what can be, and we open ourselves up to that new possibility. And that infinite creative power, that one divine source that shares itself as and through and in every part of its creation, that one that has created each of us individually and all of us together, that one divine power and presence is ready and active right now in creating that newness for us, through us, as us. The good that we're seeking is unfolding for us now, and there's nothing that stands in the way of it. As we get our bloated nothingness out of the way, as we let go of our thoughts that it can't possibly get any better, then it can. It can get better, and it does get better. And it's different for each of us. The experience that I might be choosing is different than the experience that somebody else listening to me now might be choosing. So it's not the specifics. It is the process and the principle. As we open up to the good, as we identify that which we are ready to let go of, and embrace that which we are inviting in next, we go through another upward spiral, and more and more and more good comes into our lives. And it happens now, for each of us in our own particular way. And I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful for the good. I'm grateful for the awareness of the process. And I'm most certainly grateful to be able to speak this word and release it into that creative law. And to know without any question, without any hesitation, without any doubt whatsoever, that this good is already underway. So this feeling of thanks, I speak this word, I let it go. I release it into that creative law. And I know that it's so. And so it is.
The Practical Prayer Podcast with Reverend Bill Marchiony and Carol Lawrence is a production of BeTheLight.com.
be-the-light.com.
Where you can find more information about practical prayer for real results.
Our theme is by Music of Wisdom. You can learn about the spiritual community of New Thought Philadelphia with daily guided meditations,
Weekly celebrations of spirit,
and Reverend Bill's classes in practical spirituality
at newthoughtphilly.org.
Woohoo! And that is episode number 117 of the Practical Prayer Podcast, which goes online a week from Wednesday.
117.
117.
Yeah. After we passed the 2-year mark, I started noticing that I'm keeping up with the numbers a little better. Just makes me feel good.
Okay. Yeah. Numbers don't mean anything except when they mean something. I'm getting dangerously close. I do a meditation, my personal meditation every morning on Insight Timer. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's a timer, sometimes it's guided, sometimes it's music. And I've been doing it for a long time, and I'm like 1,930 days in a row. Wow. So I'm getting close to 2,000 days in a row. It's like, ooh, there's another number. And of course that'll come and go, and it'll be, okay, now it's 2007. So it's just a number.
No, it's more than a number. It's what it represents. To me, consistency is important.
Okay.
So I like that.
Yeah, the odometer in my car rolled past 50,000 miles and I didn't notice.
Okay.
I don't know what that means. Probably nothing.
I thought, I thought about I thought about my car. I think it's so cute. And I used to watch these shows back in the day where somebody would get their car and they'd keep it forever, So this old lady has this wonderfully beautiful, brand new old car in the garage. That was going to be me, right? My car my car was going to be that wonderful car with low mileage. It has low mileage, but I'm a little busy right now, and you would not believe the times when I go out I'm thinking, I'm putting more miles on this car. It's not going to be like a collector's item. Yeah, everything is original. It's 2012. It's beautiful, and I guess I should just give up on that, right?
You can do whatever you want with that.
To give up on it would mean I'd have to buy another car. If I'm going to hold that, I got to buy another car, and I'm not too sure I want to do that either.
Or you could just enjoy it.
I really enjoyed the idea that it was beautiful and looks like it just rolled off the showroom floor.
All right, well then get some saran wrap and another car.
Yeah, will that work? Right? Every time I take it to the dealer to get those points checks or whatever, they always talk about how wonderful and low mileage it is. And then I'm thinking, yeah, but I got to go home now. I got to go. This is going to add more.
You got to drive
mileage.
home in it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to.
Let me drive my car around on a flatbed so it doesn't get any miles, or back it up everywhere.
Yeah, or
We used to try that. Yeah, that's not going to work either.
this was good.
This was good. It was a fun program, and it's good to be back to it. Sorry we missed last week. I'm not really sorry we missed last week because the Parliament of World Religions was worth going to. But yeah, that was the first one where we didn't have a recording for a week. So see what happens next week, and then we'll see what happens when we go to the Anton retreat the first week in October.
You're just flying all over the place. That's what
That's
you
going to
get.
be my last. That's my last flight for the year.
Yeah, but you know what? That's what happens when you're high up on the food chain, right? You got to be at everything.
Well, yeah. I mean, in some cases, I got to run everything. So, but that's fun too.
But you're still like, I get to say I know you.
My daughter gets to say she knows me, but she does it with her eyes rolled up towards the ceiling.
That's daughters,
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
All right, that is going to bring this episode of the pre-show, post-show to a close. Thank you again, Carol. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And again, if you want to put in a comment, if you're watching the recording, you can go to b-the-light.com.
Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, for your continued support. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown Atlanta, for your monthly contribution. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, for your monthly contribution. And please help us welcome Om Center for Spiritual Living in La Mesa, California. Thank you for your monthly donation. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, for your most generous donation. And a special thanks to Hefferlin Foundation for your generous technology grant. And Suze Ajit, thank you for your very generous donation. And a super special thank you to Dr. Tracy Brown, RSCP. Thanks for being a super donor. And a big shout out to all our committed donors.